Yeah, you know me, I'm Marek, and well, I'm senior front-end developer here at BlueRider, and yes, I just came here to tell you about the case that we had when we had to do a full package upgrade of the project of one of our clients. And well, I wanted to talk first about the technological debt, because I don't know if everyone here is aware of what is the tech debt exactly. And tech debt is basically a concept that mostly developers know, that whenever we do something and deliver some solutions, at certain point we are taking shortcuts or making something faster to give it to the client, and then we are accumulating technological debt because we are doing suboptimal implementations. We don't care that much about architecture and extendability and maintainability and so on. So short-term profit is that we deliver faster, which customers really like because they like to see what they get immediately. But the long-term problems that we accumulate over time is increased complexity, development slows down, and in extreme cases, the entire project might completely fail because it might be absolutely non-extendable and non-changeable in the future, and at some point it's just going to fail completely, especially if the team is rotating a lot and new developers are introduced and they simply can't figure out what's going on. So whenever we are working, we consider technological debt that, well, it is being accumulated at certain rate, but we do try to pay it off. And whenever we think about paying it off, we always think that there is a let's say we want to figure out a moment. Okay, do we do refactors now or later, and so on. And the truth is, there is never a good moment to pay the technological debt off. There will always be push by the clients, by the business to deliver new features, to make new stuff, basically something tangible that they can see and so on. Because doing refactors for them is nothing that the refactors are not something that they are interested in, and they don't really see if developers are faster 2 years from now, if they are going to be faster with delivery. No one's going to notice that. And paying technological debt is basically something that we have to think about when trying to plan our sprints, for example. So when we plan a sprint, we can sneak in some refactors, some changes in between of the feature works that we have, but sometimes that might not be possible. And that was our case. We basically went when I joined the team, I was aware that the project had issues accumulated over time, and we were aware that, okay, the client requests more and more features, but the technological debt became quite large, and especially when it came to dependencies, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So we had to do something about it, and we knew that we couldn't do it in a short bursts of work during sprints by doing some sideline work or something like that. We had to put a significant effort to pay off this debt, and we figured out that we have to do it in large steps of sorts. And first step was the convincing phase. So basically, we had to convince the client that we have to do that. And well, there was a lot of problems in the project, which was no upgrades since the beginning. So when we have a JavaScript project, and on front ends in the web development, it's usually JavaScript or with TypeScript, but we have this package management, which is basically a repository of code that we can use in our projects. There is thousands of these packages with different licensing and so on. And generally, whenever we work with the project, we do use them extensively, hundreds of these packages and so on. And each of these packages is a dependency in our project. This is someone else's code. We don't have to rewrite it. We use it, and everyone does so and so on. But if you have a lot of these dependencies, you might, first of all, get into dependency mess, which we had. So, for example, we had 3 packages that were doing the same thing. For example, we had a drop-down menu which was handled by 3 different packages, and we could integrate it into one instead of using 3. And why it's important is the vulnerabilities that it might introduce. Because when we are working with these dependencies, we use someone else's code in the package that we are importing into our project. And each of these packages also imports their own packages, and so on, creating a huge tree of dependencies, which relies on code from someone else. It might sometimes be even code written by a single person somewhere, and so on. So every single one of these dependencies is a potential attack vector and vulnerability, because if someone will upgrade their packaging with malicious code and someone else along this entire huge tree, which might contain thousands of packages, will mindlessly upgrade these packages, then this code eventually, malicious code, can land on in our project. So that's a huge attack vector that might potentially happen. And we were, well, very aware of that potential issue, especially for a client who is very compliance heavy and wants to do certification and so on. And having obsolete packages also creates an abysmal developer's experience. In our case, we had a lot of issues with the project where we couldn't use certain tools. The tooling that we used was very slow, and in general it was terrible. So after convincing phase, luckily we had luck that our client is a bit technical, so we were able to convince him to do the upgrade and invest his time and money, which Andrzej referred to before, saying that it is going to cost him. We were able to convince him. Luckily he's a technical person, so he agreed upon, he didn't require too much convincing. But in your case, it might be, this phase, the convincing phase, might be the hardest one, basically, because not everyone will understand the issue at hand that you have. But my entire presentation is about showing you how can you argue for your potential customer to what you can bring to the table by convincing him to do these specific steps. So after that, we went to planning phase, which I actually wasn't too keen on doing, but it was Andrzej's idea to do, and I'm happy that we did it, which was a planning phase. We knew that we have a lot of problems in the project, and we had to work through it. And I sat down and tried to figure out, okay, since when we try to upgrade any package, we are with the problem that whenever I upgrade a single package, I need to upgrade more of them because they're becoming incompatible. And that pulled out the entire entire upgrade process it forced it to be done in a single step. So I thought maybe that's not possible to split it into smaller work chunks. But after deeper dive, I actually figured out, okay, we can split it into smaller chunks of work, which allowed us to create a roadmap of how can we proceed with the upgrade. And it was it was very useful, because first it gave us a framework for our PMs, for managers, and for the client to see, okay, how that process is going to work, how much time it's going to take, and what is going to happen, right? So it was a very useful tool first for communication, and also for work on organizations later on, because I was able to efficiently split the work that we have to do with Norbert and with QA team, what needs to be checked, what needs to be tested, and so on. So huge props to Andrzej. Of course, the execution was a bit different than the initial plan, but it gave us a proper roadmap to do the development, the upgrade, and so on. And then we went to the execution phase, which was full of just hand-picking each dependency, checking what changed, looking for change logs, checking which dependencies are no longer used in our project at all, cleaning it up, removing duplicates, then upgrading and fixing. Along the way, we refactored a lot of the systems to make them more maintainable. We removed dead code. We did a lot and more stuff that was needed for these upgrades, and it took a while, and in the end we ended up with upgraded projects as we thought, and then we came to the regression by QA, which was, At first, everything seemed fine, but after a while, we found out that we have a lot of defects that we had to clean up because the system stopped working as it was before. Because React, when we upgraded from React 16 to 18, changed their rendering process. Previously, the whole rendering was synchronous, and now it was asynchronous with batching. So that introduced a lot of race conditions, and any developer knows that race conditions are one of the worst bugs that you can chase within the systems. So it took us a while, but huge props to the QA team that they were able to really thoroughly check the system, figure out what's the issues, bring us tickets so we could easily identify the bugs that we need to fix. So it was great. And then you could say, okay, we finally finished that, and yeah, everything is ready. And you could say, yeah, that's the end. We did the upgrade and everyone is happy. But it's not necessarily the truth. At the end, we have decided that we need to create a comprehensive report of what have we done, basically. Because, okay, the client said, yeah, I'm using the new version and it feels snappier, it's faster, you know, and everything is great. It was something that he was saying to us as his opinion, but there is always a potential possibility that it's a placebo effect, right? That it's not necessarily any better when it comes to performance. And also, as Andrzej mentioned before my presentation, the client might have responsibilities to report to someone. We report to the client as well. And if someone asks him, okay, what did your team do for the last 8 months, right? You could say, well, yeah, we did upgrades. And then he would say, for 8 months? And what did we achieve with that? And he wouldn't have anything tangible to show him. So we decided to go for the reporting phase and make a comprehensive report of what actually changed and how did that affect the entire project and what tangible benefits did he gain from that. In numbers, or at least in some written report that would show him on the paper, yeah, here it is, this is what you gained, and this is why it's important in the future to do so again. So what did the report tell us? So first of all, when we cleaned up all of the dependencies, you can see here on the screen that we have before dependencies and after. It really doesn't matter, it's just an animation of the entire tree of these dependencies. But if you could look at the details of both of them, you could see that before it was a huge mess and now it's a bit more cleaner. But it's just for the, just to check something visual. But in fact, we had 122 direct dependencies, which are the packages that we use in the project directly. And after the upgrade, we had which had 116 dependencies, which is not a huge reduction. But when it comes to the nested dependencies, all these sub packages that are used by the individual dependencies got reduced from 2013 to 814, which is over 55% reduction. And why this is important is due to the security that I said before. The less packages, the less dependencies we have, is the smaller attack vector of potential malicious code that could enter our code base through malicious actor that could maintain those packages. So it was very important, and especially important because when we started doing the upgrade, we had this whole package manager, which is called an NPM, and it reported to us which packages have reported vulnerabilities that are still present in our app, basically. So we had over 168 vulnerabilities in the project, of which 6 were critical. Not all of them are applying to the front end because JavaScript might be used on the back end as well. So not all of them applied to us, but try to explain this to any compliance director or someone doing a certification for security, It's something that we couldn't basically live with and be calm about. So yeah, after the upgrade, we dropped every single vulnerability to 0. So from now on, NPM reports, okay, we have 0 vulnerabilities. If anything shows up, we can easily upgrade to newer version of the package which has the issue fixed. So that's a huge gain that I would say that reduces the business risk and compliance risk for the client significantly. And we gained performance. And when it comes to performance, Yeah, it was visible that the app was faster and more snappy. You could click and it was a bit faster, but how much faster? What changed? So we had to figure out, okay, what can we measure? What we can decide on what is the measure that would tell us, oh yeah, the app is faster. And there are, of course, measurements for that, like Lighthouse metrics, which I did. I took a specific path, and you could see if after the presentation I will give you if someone would want, I will send you the full report. For this, I'm just showing you an example. I took several hot paths of our application. For example, we have a screen of records, which is mostly used, and we figured, okay, let's take some specific views that are very important and let's test them with proper metrics that we can check. And I did with Lighthouse. I had to build both versions, before upgrades and after versions, create Docker images out of it and deploy these versions on my computer to be able to measure this without any slowdowns from the development mode. And I also did several tries to reduce any risk of statistical error, make it statistically significant. And we did see, quite significant performance improvements, which was... Yes, I was about to get to that. Yeah, so for the Lighthouse metrics, we had first contentful paint, which means when we start the page, this is the time from the moment the page starts loading, and after the first basically the first element of your page shows up. So if you have a lot of elements, various HTML content, this is the time for the first element to appear at all. Largest contentful paint is the same, but it's from the start to displaying the largest element. So if you have the... Largest in what sense? In the sense that it is the largest on the screen, and by width and height, and potentially the main content of your application. So if you have, let's say, navbar, sidebar, and you have a huge table in the middle, if the table shows up, this is the time that it will measure it. And what exactly Lighthouse metrics choose to be the largest contentful paint usually is the height and width of the HTML element. Yeah, mostly area. Yeah. Then we have total blocking time. JavaScript is single-threaded, and when it's processing our website and processing the JavaScript in the background, we have main thread and we can delegate asynchronous tasks. I won't go into that much details, but total blocking time is how much time was spent when our JavaScript blocked the main thread for longer than 50 milliseconds. What does it mean? When our JavaScript blocks the main thread for more than 50 milliseconds, the user can see that he can't do anything. His clicks are blocked, he can't do anything. Basically, the website is completely non-responsive. So anything that goes above 50 milliseconds is visible to the user, and he can see that, okay, something froze for let's say a second or different time. So we had 0.07 second total blocking time before the upgrade, and after that we went to 0.04 as well, which is accumulated time of blocked main thread. Speed index is the speed at which all our content is being shown, and the speed at which the elements show up sequentially. So also lower is better. It improves the speed at which the page shows up. And CLS is the cumulative layout shift. And the layout shift is a concept that whenever you display a website, let's say, and you have a loading spinner, for example, and when the under this loading spinner you have, I don't know, some kind of text. And your loading spinner, after it's stopped loading and shows up your loaded data, it will move, for example, it can move the content or the text below it further down or something like that. And this is the shift, because the content was initially in a specific position, but after the loading, it was moved somewhere else because other content took this place. So this is called layout shift, and it is something that we don't like actually, because we want the page to let's say, show something up, and after loading, it should take the same amount of space. It shouldn't move around when page is loading to reduce the cognitive load and generally have everything in the same place as it appeared in the beginning. So cumulative layout shift actually in this case was completely 0. Now it was 0.001. But that's basically like a small artifact probably from ANTD upgrade, which is almost unnoticeable. But we had some improvements in that area as well on other paths that you can see in the report. So yes, that confirmed it. We had much better loading time and general experience of loading the page, which is important for many reasons. As in B2C, for example, when we develop front-end applications, we have to be aware, even if we are doing B2B applications, so business to business, we have to be aware that, for example, Google and Akamai research, especially very known milliseconds make millions article from Google, well, they figured that if you have an e-commerce application front-end, each 100 milliseconds of loading time for your website is 7% lower conversion for your e-commerce website. So how many users convert to sales? So that can, with significant traffic on your website, that can basically mean that you're losing millions potentially. And why it's important in B2B business from our case? Because, well, if it's good in B2C market, that means that the experience is good on the B2B side as well. So someone who's using this on the B2B side, let's say the employees of a specific corporation, they just have better experience, and this is what we strive for, right? We don't use super new technologies like React or Angular with high performance UI to, well, developed crap, right? That will just be slow and be worse than vanilla HTML with CSS. So we also took specific React metrics to see how much we gained, especially since we upgraded from React 16 to React 18. And we have measured initial re-render count. Render in React is a concept that tells you how many times did React have to, like each render, whenever something has to change in the React tree and it has to re-render on your screen, this is a render, right? You change something, your website changes, and it has basically, it has to, in simplifying words, it has to print the website on your page, right? Or a chunk of this website. So more re-renders means that there is more processing and JavaScript is doing more work. So less re-renders is potentially better performance because it doesn't have to re-render the screen so many times before it stabilizes and shows you what it wants to show you. So we went from 60 to 44 for this specific page, which is almost 30% improvement. Commit duration is the time from the initialization of the changes to the moment the page stabilized, and also including API calls. So you can't look at these numbers. Let's say it was 6.73 seconds. It was not an absolute number. You can't count it as a number from the beginning of the page to the moment it stopped, because it also accumulates time if the API calls are made simultaneously, but it can be measured relatively to each other. So if we had a higher number, that means that less processing happened during commit duration. So we had also a huge improvement in here for 36%. And longest render from the render count that I mentioned before, it's each of these re-renders can take a specific amount of time. And the longest re-render is the one that took the longest. So potentially if you might have a little amount of re-renders, but one of the re-renders will take a second, it's going to block the main thread and it's going to block basically your app, and you can see that it froze for this second and you couldn't click anything and so on. So we also had a reduction in here, maybe not that impressive, but that these numbers going below 250 milliseconds means that we have basically very responsive application, and yeah, that's a huge improvement as well. And one of the most important stuff for me that improved, and we could check, and we also included that in the report, is the developer experience, which is something that can be really maybe not calculated for the specific savings that the customer gets, but we can at least move his imagination and show him, yeah, you got huge improvements in here and you have huge savings. Because, for example, we have a hot module replacement. This is the mechanism that causes the website, when we are developing and we do a change, for example, we change the background. This is a system that causes the change to get applied to the website by not completely restarting everything. So let's say I change a button color, it's going to just replace this button to not restart the entire project. And with previous tooling that we had, it worked like that we had, let's say I was changing the font of the button, I applied the change, and the entire website had to refresh. So it was refreshing, taking several seconds, and then it was then appearing and so on. So we've been losing seconds after each change. And let's say we are adjusting and very specific thing, like rounded corners, background, doing some very little tweaks that we do on the UI sometimes. And after each change, we have to wait for the full restart. It was really painful and sometimes really prone for us to lose focus and, well, waste time because we simply stopped concentrating on the task at hand. Also, development server startup time. Whenever we come to work, we start working on the project, we have to basically start it to make it changeable and be able to work on it. And that's what we do. We basically run a single command and the development server starts up our website and it's ready with code module replacement and all that stuff that I mentioned. It's ready to apply the changes and show us what we are working with. And with previous tooling, this process took over a minute and a half. Whenever we had to launch the development server, it took over a minute to start up. And this was a problem because not only we do that when we start working, sometimes the issue might start when we simply changed something and for some reason hot module replacement failed, something broke, you had to restart the development server or you reinstalled some packages. Sometimes you have to restart the server just because you did something. And it was minutes and minutes of lost time. And trust me, if I'm starting a development server for the third time and it's going to take a minute and a half, I'm opening YouTube and I'm losing much more than that because I'm going to lose focus of what I was doing and I'm going to be, well, basically losing even more time. And, well, in the age of AI, I don't see that coming in often, is that the focus zone and how much the programmer is focused on the work and so on and how many distractions there are. And I've been wondering how that ties to AI, and for me this was very important to not get slowed down and have potentially more stuff that would take you out of work. And after the upgrades we went from a minute and a half to basically development server starting up almost instantly. And then after launching the first part, this is a cold start, it took maybe 15 seconds. So the risk of losing focus was much, much lower. And what it opened up to us as well was the availability of new technologies, because we were on React 16 and we had obsolete packages like TypeScript in our version 3 and so on. We couldn't use all the modern tooling that we have, most notably React Query, which now we are using significantly. And when we started using it after the upgrade, we could immediately show for the customer, look, this is the new feature that we are delivering with React Query, and it is immediately much more snappy. It's much snappier, it looks much better, it works much better, you don't have so many loading spinners. So yeah, using more modern tools because we did the upgrade is something that first speeds up development, allows us to stay up to date and use the best stuff that comes around from the JavaScript community. So, and other goodies, right? So yeah, as I mentioned, we upgraded React to 18, TypeScript to 5. We upgraded most of the dependencies, and one more important stuff happened, which I also believe is important. We revealed a lot of hidden project issues. So with previous packages that we had certain tools like slint and we had TypeScript and so on. But after the upgrade, we figured that some of these tools didn't work properly or the rule sets were upgraded. And after the upgrade, after bringing these tools back online, we realized that we have thousands and thousands of errors and warnings reported by ESLint and TypeScript, which showed us, a lot of stuff that we have really poorly made in the project. And that's a good thing, because, well, okay, at first thing you can say, okay, but now you have, these these red lights and warnings and so on. But at the same time, we are no longer cheating ourselves what is the situation in the project. So now we can see, okay, this is the current state, and from now on we can only improve. And during the upgrade, and thanks to Norbert, he did absolutely spectacular job in there. We were able to reduce most of those issues. TypeScript got cleaned, ESLint errors are still there, but much more, like a much smaller amount of them. So this is something that we are constantly doing now. And at the same time, as I said, this is the stuff that we can do with regular housekeeping during sprints. So it doesn't require us months of involvement again. So that's a huge plus. We can clearly see what we have wrong in the project and what we can fix and how much time we should spend on it. Another important issue was we had a sub-project called. It doesn't really matter what it does. It was a part of the core feature, but it was done by some other developer in the project, and it was a completely separate project, and it was, well, it didn't have any code review processes, it didn't have any CI pipelines. Nothing was up to the standard of BlueRider and whatever we do whenever we do projects at the system. So it also wasn't generic. It was only used in. There was basically no way to use it in any other project. So I really wanted to bring it back to the main code base, and we did, which allowed us to apply changes faster, because before, whenever we had to do any change in this sub-project, we had to rebuild it, re-import it, and a lot of stuff had to go to make a really slight change, and now it's back into the project. And it is especially impressive what we achieved with that is that we reduced the almost 40,000 lines of code from our code base. Lines of code do not tell much about the complexity of the project, but everyone can agree that the more lines of code you have, the more maintenance you have, basically. Every single line of code is basically a dependency that you have to take care of. It's simple as that. It increases the brain overload that you have to go through whenever you get into the new project. You have to figure out what's going on and so on. So such a huge reduction. It was 16% of the whole code base, while everything stayed the same. It's not like we reduced this code base and we removed some features. And at the same time, we even brought to the project. So with that, we really cleaned up the project, which is absolutely huge achievement for the future of this project, because new developers that will eventually get on board and get hired will have easier times getting on board with the project and learning and understanding how it works. So for the entire developer experience, it is great. So not everything went smoothly with this entire process, because as Andrzej mentioned before my presentation, the whole process took about 8 months. And our initial convincing phase and in general planning phase assumed that we are going to take around 6 months. So what happened? Well, when we created the initial plan, it was a roadmap of sorts. And we were aware that there is a lot of stuff, a lot of unknowns that we don't know what's going to happen with these upgrades. We didn't know the exact state of the code base and so on. So it had an element of research and development. So we knew that there were a lot of unknowns. So at some point we reached 6 months timeline, and we knew that we are going to take much more than that. So we had to discuss, of course, with the client and with the team, and team really worked great. They said, okay, what can we do? And we basically figured it out, okay, so if it's going to take longer, let's open up a simultaneous development version, so we can deliver more features for the client, so he could see, okay, something is happening, but at the same time we'll be able to finish the issue. And as a whole team, we basically handled the issue, and client was happy. we were happy, and basically everyone was happy because we knew exactly what is going to happen, what is going on, and well, there was no, well, we never had a phone call from the client saying that he's angry or something. So that's something that I think we handled well. And what did we learn from the entire process, right? So what can I say? Try not to get into such technological debt that you have to do this kind of huge project to bring the project back on the right track. So plan dependency upgrades frequently. Try to just check out once a quarter your most important packages that are the core of your project. Check what changed. If you can do an upgrade quite quickly. If you are going to do your dependencies upgrades frequently, it's not going to be as painful as we had to have it, because it's going to be much smaller in scope. Faster delivery doesn't mean good delivery. I know that clients want faster, more features, AI especially. Yeah, I'm going to throw out some code, you don't have to look at it. But the truth is after a year or two, so you or some other developer is going to look at this code and he's going to need to figure out what is going on, why it is happening, how can I extend that, what can I do, and well, it's going to slow things down. So yeah, it's good to have good compromise between fast and good, right? So try to keep that in mind all the time. Provide more room for unknowns in estimations. This is mostly to me, that whenever we do estimation, just, yeah, I don't know, add 50% to your estimation just in case if you have unknowns. Just be very wary that something might go wrong. Although sometimes it might not be possible, because you might have a customer who could say, yeah, it's going to take 6 months. But you realistically think, yeah, it's going to take 12 months. But the customer won't accept 12 months timeline. So it's kind of a negotiation, like in business, you know, you negotiate kind of, you take the estimation, you say, yeah, it's going to take 6 months. You know, it's going to take 8. But in the end, yeah, everything is going to somehow work out. So sometimes we have to take such a risk. But yeah, be aware that, well, estimations are important for everyone in the team, for both managers, the customer, you, your other team members. And do your best to slow down tech back debt accumulation. By that I mean the dependencies is not the only thing that causes the technological debt. Anything we do with code basically introduces every single new line of code is almost like a technological debt. If you have a functionality that you're implementing and you need to do the same stuff several times, extract a function that's going to create some abstractions, do something reusable. If you want to deliver something fast and you created the initial solution, maybe spend some time to refactor it to make it more readable or extendable. Because personally, if I have to give anyone a rule or a motto, which is my motto for me, no matter if we're working alone in the project, we're always working in a team. And that team is past self, current self, and future self, or, well, past Marek, current Marek, and future Marek. Whenever I'm working with code, I'm looking at the code that Marek wrote 6 months ago, and I'm going to write code today that Marek in the 6 months in the future is going to read and develop. So always try to go an extra mile. Even if you finished your feature, just think, maybe there is a low-hanging fruit that you can change, do something that is going to make your code easier, easier to manage, easier to read. If you can provide a JS doc comment or just a comment that provides some additional information, something that is, you know, every single improvement. Of course, don't linger too much on doing something perfect, because better done than perfect. But just be aware that going lazy might bite you in the future. So try to provide as best solutions as we can. And in my mind, any solution, any coding solution is the best if even the most junior developers can look at it and understand it from the first go. That's the best solutions that I think are the easiest to manage, maintain, and extend in the future. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening, and well, hope you have questions to me. And yeah, that's it. That's the process that we went through.
So what was the hardest part to do?
To be honest, after so long, I think the hardest part was the stress induced by everything taking so long and discovering new defects that we had to fix, and we were already over schedule, and we had new defects coming up because something new was shown. And yeah, that was kind of stressful, and I would say that was the hardest, because at this point, referring to what I said before, at this point you are not so worried about extendability and maintainability, and you are accumulating technological debt again to fix the bugs that you just, because if you have a single bug to fix, you might take the time to do the proper solution, make it well, right? But if you have 50 bugs to fix, you're not going to linger too much on a single one. You're going to try to fix them as fast as you can. So that was quite stressful, and I would say it was quite hard to have a compromise between, okay, this bug is so strange, I'm going to rewrite the entire part of the system, and just doing, okay, let's do duct tape solution in this specific case, and let's move on. So that was the hard part.
So I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Is that something typical for all kind of languages or just JavaScript?
I would say it's for all kinds of languages, because JavaScript itself, I mean, it's a hammer, it's a tool. The concept of asynchronous programming is in most languages. So let's say if you have issues, let's say you are writing the website in WebAssembly. So you are taking Blazor, for example, technology based on C#. You can also have such problems that you, for example, try to update something asynchronously, and then you have a desynchronization and something comes up before anything else, and so on and so on. So a lot of stuff might happen on backends as well. It's just the nature of, systems that are asynchronous, right? So yeah, it might happen everywhere.
So I actually have because I understand what I saw here. You mentioned two things. One is the upgrade, which for me means you moving from one version of a package to a newer one. Another one is a dependency. For me, these are two separate things. You can reduce dependencies without any upgrades. You can probably do upgrades without reducing dependencies also, right? Dependencies means that, one package, one example that you gave was that some drop-down was done with 3 different packages. Well, so my concern is, how can I be sure that you're not going to start doing this again? That these unnecessary dependencies won't creep in it again? And
that's what developers are being paid for. I mean,
the ones that did this before.
Yeah, I get that, but yeah.
They didn't do it for free.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's a matter of ownership. Someone has to own the product. He has to be.
Tools that will prevent me from doing something like that, or let's say I have a drop down. The application has a drop down that you right? And I'm coming to a project and I have to do another drop down. And let's say I don't know about the other one, and I bring my own. Well, there
might be tools like that. I don't know any out of my head. I would have to check.
As a client, would be, you did the mess once.
Yeah, but
what confidence do I have?
Yeah, true. Although dependency hygiene, as I call it, is something that basically all developers on the team should be striving for. And I don't know if automation of this is something that is feasible, because it's very easy to get false positives. Because let's say, in our case, we are using ANTD library to develop the project. And ANTD library is a components library, which contains a lot of various components that you might be using in the project. And you might have a drop-down in it. What if a specific feature or functionality is not present in this drop-down library for ANTD, and we need something so specific that ANTD doesn't have that, and it's not possible to extend it to that. And then we see, okay, there is this small package that includes a drop-down that has this functionality. If we introduce that to the project, will it get flagged by the automatic system? Yeah, it should. It's another components package. Why do you have it? You have ANTD, but it's not necessarily a proper detection that should happen. Same goes for a lot of other stuff. And there is also a question of having having the dependencies in different versions and so on. So yeah, there are tools that are going to help you out with analyzing what you have in the project and what you have, but doing the full automation might not be so straightforward to just automatically detect that.
How would you catch this now? If, I mean, again, thinking with my client cap is okay. We got into a mess of dependencies. After what I hear here, I have no confidence we're not going to end up there in another 12, 18 months.
Well, I think that what Marek was saying during the presentation, that if we will continue to keep pushing and going after the features without time to make a proper reviews, make a proper think of what we are doing, that's going to happen, yes.
Yeah, it's all about the process, right? If you have a team that has no process, developers just given tasks and they can merge as they want, they can branch as they want, they can do basically whatever they want with the code base, yes, you're going to end up with such an issue. But if you have some process that is being applied, you reduce the risk significantly. If you have code reviews and you have people that care about the project, well, they will notice that, oh, you introduced this new package. Why? We have ANTD, right? If they will be able to defend this decision to introduce the new package, fine. But if they are going to just do it because they were lazy and they, didn't have proper...
I'm not going too much on a tangent here, but I would like to know what would be that process? At which point should this new package be discovered and kind of discussed between the team whether we should introduce it?
I think it's more of a... that fits the definition of premature optimization is the evil of all things. If you have some redundancy in dependencies, it's not the end of the world. So I don't think it's something that you should constantly chase. Oh no, we have these two packages, they shouldn't be there or something like that. It's all a matter of a good compromise. You should try to be clean and try to keep the project at bay. If your dependencies are really getting bloated and I am a developer, I come in, I see 3 components libraries, I have no idea what is what and what are we using, then that's a problem. But if you have, let's say, okay, we have these dependencies, in general we use ANTD and we have these specific dependencies and components for use, then it's fine. If something is out of ordinary, okay, maybe there is some I miss the English word, the reason for that, yeah, the reasoning for it to be there. So I wouldn't go crazy about it, but it's something that every team should be aware of, that dependency bloat is something that might happen. And as we strive to be the best company in the world here at BlueRider, we basically, it's something that comes with experience. You can't pay AI and say, yeah, this is useless and so on. That's what you are paying good developers for, that they care, they take good care of the project, they have experience, and they basically will keep everything at bay to keep the project easy to introduce for new people that might come into the project.
Yes, but you also mentioned that actually without proper process, that might not work anyway, even if you have a good...
Of course.
So I guess the question of Andrzej was to establish where in that process this kind of thing should be catched. So exactly. My intuition is that there are a few places. Probably one, if there is a bigger change, so technical design. So that's one change where we can introduce new components, but they're typically big components, like a new database, type of database, or things like that. So those are big things that may be catched in a technical design phase, where we say, well, we don't need actually a new NoSQL database because we're already using one, so let's use the one, right? So that's the one thing. For smaller stuff, I guess that's the code review,
Sure.
the proper code review.
And
I actually think it all should happen at the design phase. If somebody's making a decision that they want to bring a new package into the project, this should be discussed before a single line of code is written. That's what I'm thinking. Even if it's small. How often does it
Andrzej, I can't agree with that. Yeah, sure.
Do you introduce tens of new packages every week? Probably not. I hope not. Right? So it probably happens maybe once a month. So you say, well, I want to do something. I don't see anything in the current project that does it. So you go, the team is small, say, I want to introduce a new package. let's discuss this at least briefly. And maybe somebody will tell you, Marek, you don't need it because there is something you were not aware of that will do it. Or at least at this moment you get the consensus, and they say, yeah, let's do it. Right?
Yeah, I can't necessarily agree by being like very strict about planning all that on the planning phase. I mean, spikes are very good example. When we work on spikes, someone says, okay, I'm going to use this package or this solution, that's going to be great, and so on. That's a great place and moment to plan for packages upgrade but like that. But in terms of JavaScript ecosystem, basically, the NPM packaging and all these dependencies and so on, the entire, ecosystem is designed in a way that, people are installing even very small packages, and it would be very unfeasible to let's say organize meetings for every single small package that you want to use. It would be really unfeasible.
I have to say I'm not convinced at all, because without knowing how often it happens, I don't know if it's feasible or not. As I'm saying, if it happens tens of times a week, it's not feasible. If it happens once a month, it's totally feasible.
It's based on the maturity of the project. In the very beginning, it's going to happen several times a day. If it's
that somebody wants to bring a new package.
Yes, if you're starting the project, you're going to install packages.
I understand when you start.
Exactly. Exactly. After first few weeks, you might have like one package a week, for example. If you are like few years into the project, it might be one package every quarter or something. So,
So at this point, I don't see any reason not to discuss
of course.
Before you decide.
Of course. I mean, it's up to the process. However the organization works, it's up for the process to be, because companies operate on a different basis, right? At BlueRider, I would say we have good compromise between being very, let's say, strict about the process, doing it in a very organized way, but at the same time leaving us with the agility and flexibility that we can, meet the customer's expectations that, something changed on the last second. Okay, we are also fine with that. So in life personally, I don't like whenever you think about I don't like being on the edge of any decision. I like the compromise. Like I don't like going all in on a specific way of operation. So I really like that we have it this way in BlueRider. So we do prepare a lot before implementing stuff, but at the same time we are ready to compromise and be flexible when needed. So to answer your question, in the end, yes, that's a good idea to discuss everything, but I think if you have experienced developers and during development, because we might always have a situation when something wasn't brought up during the spike or during the feature specs and so on. Sometimes might always come back. We are humans after all. There are mistakes. And if the, let's say, senior developer introduces a new package and he might just, that's a good thing to have an office and come to the office. He might ask them, his colleagues around him, hey, do you think this is a good idea to use this package? And they would be okay with it. I think it's also fine. As long as people care about the project and they just don't bloat the entire code base.
One thing is that you can have shit tons of processes, right? But if you don't have people that enforce it and that really care about the product, there's nothing.
Exactly.
If there's not going to be a person that follows the guidelines that.
Exactly.
For example, it's going to get bloated.
So as much as I know that AI evangelists say that AI is going to change developers forever because the code is it's so straightforward. The truth is that the IT industry is full of human factor. So we have to take that into account on every step whenever we work, plan or execute. So yeah.
I have one more question, a bit more technical.
Sure.
What did you do to make sure that you reproduce both environments one-to-one? So you got the same database, you got some backend, I guess you got separated your front end.
Yeah, in terms, you mean when I was doing lighthouse memeasurements?
Yeah.
Yeah, for front-end it's much easier because, well, basically it's not a distributed system that requires a lot of co-projects and different services and so on. I could basically build the front-end for both of the applications. I use Docker to basically create an image of both as they were on production. I deployed them on my computer and I could easily redirect the backend to a single environment that we had deployed.
Yeah, let's say you've got like tens of thousands packages inside the database in production environment, and you're only testing locally with a simple setup. It might act differently on production when there's full.
It's not, because that's why I was using the Docker images and the build process. In JavaScript, when you have your project, you are using these packages, you are going through a build step. And when this build step happens, it takes all these dependencies.
I know
Yeah.
about this one, but
Exactly.
you got this metric that was the largest content page,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And let's say it fetches the data from the database, right?
Yeah.
And how long does it fetch the data also affects your application. So whenever you are testing on 40,000 objects and you are testing on one object, you're gonna get different results, right?
True. That's why I was using absolutely the same environment with the same screen, with the same amount of data to fetch. Of course, there is a difference between, one fetch might take 20 milliseconds and another 30 milliseconds, of course. But I was averaging the measurements with several measurements to basically even out the average response time of the backend. So yeah, there might be some movements along this, but I think I did it in a statistical enough significance to be able to tell that okay, 30% improvement is indeed. But yeah, of course, it might not be 30%. Maybe it's 29 or 28. It's fine as long as we take enough measurements to take out statistics and the movements of and the chaotic nature of API calls and so on. But I wasn't mocking the entire database and the entire service.
Did you try to test it between and after the upgrade with the bigger amount of data?
There was no need, because we are never fetching. I was fetching the most amount of data that is going to be fetched on the single screen, because we are paginating the data, for example. So we are never fetching like everything or a huge amount of data or something like that. We are fetching specific.
You all know that the systems differ from production and testing environments quite a bit, and they behave differently when they're on stress mode. But that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, don't look at absolute numbers. That's for sure. Absolute numbers, because I was testing on Ryzen 3060X, right? 600X. And someone might be running on a computer that is much slower than mine. So yeah, when it comes to JavaScript processing times and so on, it doesn't really matter. That's why we should always compare the relative times changes than absolute values, because absolute values might differ based on the hardware and the data that you are pulling. So yeah, that's important to be aware that we have 30% improvement from whatever it was before, not from absolute number. Yeah, it was specifically 3 seconds or something like that. So we always compare relative values. Yeah. So yeah, that's an important point. Any more questions? What did you win?
We're finished.
I'm finished. Yeah, woo! Thank you. Woo!
Maybe about the problems with defects, bugs, and so on.
Sure.
So how many of them were reported? Because from developer perspective, from the people, from the guys which want to deliver the upgrades, QA is the group of people which will stop you will stop you from delivering. Yeah. So.
I mean, I wouldn't call it stopping. It's a whole team process. So in our case, development team was okay. They came up with a lot of findings. They, at the top moment, we had like over 80 something defects that we had to fix. So,
no, Marek, we have found over 180 issues.
yeah, so you see, the number was huge.
And we fixed 144 of them.
Yeah, so it's a good thing that we found the issues and we were able to address them. That's basically that's important, because the worst case scenario would be that QA didn't find anything and it went to production and the customers found them. That would be the worst case. So because when we did this upgrade, we upgraded absolutely the core packages and core features of the application. So if the potential to get something broken, it was in every single place of an entire app. And it's with such a huge system that we have, it was non-feasible for us developers to be able to click throughout everything and be able to find all the possible configurations that could be broken. So the fact that QA was able to do that and create these comprehensive reports, how to recreate the issues and give us basically, we were spoon-fed what you have to do to break the system. It was so much easier for us to fix all that. And it took a while, of course, because the issues were sometimes very hard. Sometimes we needed to rewrite the specific parts of the system. And with these rewrites, sometimes we fixed several issues at once because they were somehow related to a specific issue in a module or something like that. But yeah, I mean, if we didn't have an experienced QA team, I wouldn't be pushing to make that upgrade. That's for sure. Because I wouldn't be able to sign off that after the upgrade it's going to work as it worked properly before. So knowing that we have a skilled QA team, I knew that we can progress with this entire project, and we did. So yeah, this is a team effort. This is not something that is a success of a single developer or just a team of developers on the front-end side. It's a success of an entire team of the managers, the customer for being brave on spending his own money to do that and not get, angry board of directors or whatever. So yeah, that's a great thing that happened, and we were successful. We successfully did it, maybe a bit over time, but everyone is happy. So yeah, that's just great.
So I don't want to stretch this for too long, but you brought up the customer. Now I want to put my customer or client hat again, and I'm saying, okay, I agreed to this. It was supposed to be 6 months. It was 8. Okay, we're done. My immediate question is, how long is it good for? When is the next time you're going to come back to me and say, whoa, we need another 6 months?
Yeah, and that's...
Okay, well, so I want to answer.
So, if...
How long am I done for? How long this...
If we're going to continue on this project, probably never, because we are going to maintain the packages on a, well, say, quarterly or half a year basis. If we'll see that we need to do...
So for me, that would be a perfect answer. You're saying that, okay, this will never happen again. This kind of
yes.
Stop.
As long as there is an ownership in the project, this should never happen again, because well, the tech debt shouldn't be accumulated that high. So ownership is important. We were able to pay a huge technological debt, and another benefit for the client is that yes, we are going to work faster. As people claim that AI speeds up developers by factor of something, this speeds up us as well. Because as I said, it gives us better focus, it allows us to use modern tools that speed us up, provide better solutions, and improve the entire velocity of the team.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
It's also to mention that there are some tools which could help with detection of technical debt and occurrence.
You mean that they are, or do you ask me if they are?
No, they are.
They are. Yeah, it's okay. Okay. Yeah, probably. I mean, we even had a statistic, and Norbert found it. I think it was about what was the name of it?
Leap years.
Leap years. Yeah. That counts how many let's say if you have a library that is obsolete by 2 years because it has a newer version, it counts the years of obsolescence that you have potentially in the development in your libraries. But I mean, there are some metrics that you can find, for example, but there is an important distinction to be made. Some packages are less important than others. Let's say you have React, right? This is the core, basically core package of React. We are using React. That's the core package. It's something that is important in the project. And at the same time, you might have a package that you're using somewhere in a single sub-page somewhere that rarely anyone comes in. And it's a, let's say, obsolete package, but it just does some small functionality that is useful. New versions do not bring that much, there is no security issue, then why bother, right? So again, distinctions, analysis, experience, something that has to be taken well into consideration, but not all packages are equal, so it doesn't matter if some packages are not a security issue, they are doing their jobs, and they are not critical or something and not speeding up work significantly, then sure, if they work, why change them? They might stay obsolete. But when it comes to critical packages, yes, it would be nice to keep an eye on technological debt. Maybe introduce some CI tools that will scan it for you preemptively, just check what you could potentially improve. But I am just not prepared at this moment to give you proper and current examples, what is the best solution or what would I recommend or something. But yeah, it's probably something that could be introduced into the pipeline and the process of the team. That's always a possibility.
Pink. So much pink.
So, more questions from online team?
No.
No more? All right, thank you very much, guys.